I'm getting bad reports from basically all quarters, I have to say. In Gaza, there were Israeli bombardments most of the day. The Israeli army announced, separate from the speech you just quoted, that their top priority was to eliminate the leadership of Hamas. And today there was a major bombing at a compound where the family of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar lives. It was apparently an attempt to assassinate his brother. And I know that several people died there. I don't know if the brother was among them, but it's very difficult. The situation for Palestinians living in Gaza is extremely dire. Today, the Israeli energy minister said that there won't be any concessions on water or electricity into Gaza until Israel's hostages are released.
I was going to ask whether we were any further along the line with that, whether, talking about a deal for hostages is, simply naive, simply out of the question. That is something that Israeli forces are not necessarily putting top of their priority list.
I wouldn't say that at all. I think it's absolutely necessary to talk about it. There are about 1 million rumors about it. Everyone's talking about it. The Qataris, there's a lot of talk that the Qataris are mediating. The Turkish president, Erdogan, has offered himself as a mediator. The Americans, the Secretary of State was here today. Apparently, they are talking to the Egyptians, and Secretary of State Blinken is traveling to Qatar tomorrow. So there's a constant buzz. And of course, it would be a humanitarian miracle, but I have not heard of any serious negotiations underway. To my knowledge, the Israelis don't yet know how many people are being held in Gaza. The numbers thrown around today was 200 people, but it's not confirmed. I don't think anybody knows exactly where they are. A European diplomat today said that some of these hostages are being held in private homes. So I think we're really in the fog of war still.
There are plenty of Israelis who are being called up as reservists, 360,000 we understand, from Israel and across the world as well. Do you know anyone in that position, Noga, who's been called up, who's been asked to be available?
I know a lot of people, yeah.
And how are they feeling about it?
Well, I don't know anyone who's gotten a draft notice and turned it down. I think people feel heartbroken right now. The tallies of the dead and missing are so huge, it's difficult to contemplate. I think every Israeli I know feels that this is a tragedy of such a magnitude that everyone needs to gather and try and protect the country. Israelis under the age of 50 don't really remember feeling an existential threat to their existence here, to the state. And yet, if you look at the day of today, the number of the dead keeps rising. Residents of the south are being evacuated. Entire cities have been evacuated or are being evacuated. The city of Sderot, big cities. Up north, the population spent much of the day in bomb shelters also because of air raid sirens. Some were, mistaken, but some were real. And you have to ask yourself, in terms of the Israeli government, what are they offering Israeli citizens right now? Because the feeling is that they're offering them just death, destruction, and misery. And
call-ups.
And these men and women who have been called up feel like they can do something. They're trained to do something. They feel a sense of purpose. It's a long answer to get to that point.
Meanwhile, I know Israel's army conceded today that it had failed to protect its citizens when Hamas militants carried out the terror attack on Saturday. Is that appreciated by Israeli people, that the armies said, we failed to protect you? Hold our hands up. We failed to protect you on that.
I think it has had an impact. I think it's having more impact that the politicians are not saying the same. And I think about both sides, both the military and the political echelons. I think the bulk of the population is simply feeling shattered. And so they're not paying as much attention as they otherwise would to these kind of big statements by these big men. I think people are terrified.